It's pretty obvious that U of H's strength is their offense. Their defense is probably one of the worst defenses in the Big 12. I think scoring defense, they're last in the Big 12. I believe pass defense, they're last in the Big 12. I think rush defense, they're like 10th in the Big 12. So this game is either if U of H is going to try to pull the upset, it's either going to be, I think, kind of a shootout, and that's what U of H wants. U of H
no question.
They want a shootout. They get into a shootout like they did against West Virginia, even turned West Virginia into a shootout team. That'd be great for them. This is going to be a shootout or a blowout, in my opinion. I think Texas could blow them out. I think the line has them at almost a 21-point favorite. That could happen. I don't like that number. That's a huge number, but I could see it happening just because the defense of U of H is suspect. And Texas could pretty much, I want to say have their way, but they could decide game plan wise to either run it against U of H or to throw it against U of H. They could decide either way. We know Sark likes to throw to open up the run, though. Just because Sark has the easy route to run the football on a team and just run it down their throat, play ball control, that's not necessarily what he's going to do. He'll do that at one point during the game, maybe for a stretch, but Sark wants to throw the ball, and Sark's going to throw the football. And that, in my opinion, is, where, in this game, you could see some things with U of H because they give up a lot of explosive plays, and their DBs are they're undersized too. They're smaller DBs. Not saying they don't cover well, but they're smaller DBs too. And tackling, the Texas wide receivers in space sometimes can be a problem. So I think Houston is going to look to try to make this a shootout. They are good on special teams and returns as well. They already got 2 kick returns for touchdowns. They had one called back against West Virginia, and they had one for a touchdown versus West Virginia. So they're explosive actually in their return game, and they're explosive offensively. I like their wide receivers. And I talked to Jerry Hamilton, who looks at all the different prospects, and obviously he's one of the best recruiting analysts in the country. And I talked to him about the U of H wide receivers because watching them, I think that's their strength. The wide receivers, they don't worry me or anything, but I think they're formidable. I think Texas will have their hands full with the wide receivers. Joseph Manjack, which is a
USC transfer.
Exactly. Think about, there you go. Keep that up. There you go. Because he's from USC. He's a 4-star. So he's a guy that was highly recruited as well. Sam Brown is a really good player. Also transfer.
West Virginia.
From West Virginia. So I'm sure in the Dana Hogerson move, maybe he was one of those guys. There's also Matthew Golden. He's a wide receiver for them. He's just a speed guy. Number 2, you'll notice him. They try to get him the ball in space as much as possible. The guy can run. And it's Stephon Johnson Jr., who's an Oklahoma State transfer, who was a good player at Oklahoma State. And then he transferred there, and he works really well in their system. They like their wide receivers. Sometimes they'll go for a while, of course, in that air raid system. But those guys are legit. And I talked to Jerry Hamilton. He said, 3 of those guys are 4-star receivers in terms of their recruiting grades and how highly basically ranked they were as recruits. And they end up transferring. Some of those guys end up transferring. But Dana Hogerson knows how to weaponize his wide receivers really well in that air raid system. And Donovan Smith, we talked about quarterbacks being comfortable in a system. Donovan Smith has played in that air raid system his entire college career. It hadn't been a long college career, but he's been at Texas Tech and now here at U of H. So he's comfortable in that system too, and he can present some of the problems that Dylan Gabriel presented. They run the quarterback draw. They run the quarterback with design runs in the red zone. So they like to use him in the red zone. Longhorn fans know he can be a power quarterback run game as well. He can utilize that because he's a big guy. I think he's like 6'4". He's huge. So they will, and I guarantee after watching U of H, they'll probably try to run up-tempo as much as they can, and they'll probably try to run Donovan Smith more than he usually does.
Yeah, and they should be fresh. I mean, they had one game, they had a week off, and then they had a Thursday game, so they'll have extra time. Texas obviously coming off the bye, and it's kind of like, how did the Longhorns execute the bye, right? Did they fix some of the issues, right? The red zone.
Red zone, it's big.
Defensive tackling, right? Because they're going to stress you with those receivers you just mentioned and try to get players in space. They're not going to try to run the ball right at Texas. I mean, that's not a good idea. Attack Texas where Oklahoma was able to attack them, which was on the perimeters. getting the ball to and test this secondary to see if they can rally and tackle, and see if, as you said, create a shootout. That's exactly what Houston would like to do in this game, to create a higher scoring game, because you're not going to win playing physical with Texas on the lines of scrimmage. I think that's pretty fair. Also, I'd say for Houston, one of the biggest key offseason things for them was the negative when the running back Alton McCaskill transferred to Colorado.
Oh, he's a good player.
That was their leading coming out of spring, right? He was going to be the bell cow running back, and all of a sudden he decides he's going to go play for Deion Sanders. And they have a freshman in Parker Jenkins as their running back, so that hurt them on the offensive side of the ball. Right. Donovan Smith could have used a sturdy running back like that. He's now playing at CU. So it'd be fun to analyze this game. It's the first meeting between the Cougars and the Longhorns since the early 2000s. The first re-engagement, and obviously the first as conference members since they were back in the old Southwest Conference.